If you are just starting out, or maybe you've even been crocheting or knitting for a while, but you're feeling really discouraged, I want to take a quick minute and share with you some of the very hard lessons I learned along the way. And I'm going to be real about it. I have made some pretty terrible projects. Ugly or terrible, I know that is like the eye of the beholder, which is totally subjective. But objectively, I have made things that just don't fit anyone, that are way too small, way too big, uneven because my tension changed, you name it, and I have definitely done it. Problem is that I felt super guilty because I had spent a good amount of time and I had spent money on the yarn, and it made me feel a little bit like a failure. But now, after almost a decade of crocheting, I have really come to realize that those projects, and not even like just the beginning ones, but like projects still along the way when you're trying something new, trying a different stitch, trying a different type of yarn you're not used to. The point of it isn't to make some perfect item. The point of it is to learn and grow and develop. Now, you may have approached your hobby with a lot more like mental stability or healthy mental status than I did, but there are a few things here, I think 5 actually, that I really wish I would have known when I started crochet. And I'm gonna be honest, like these are all self-imposed things that I kind of created in my own mind. So I realize I'm like the only one to blame, but I also don't think I'm the only one who probably has thought these things. So I'm going to share with you 5 things, I think it's 5, that I wish I knew when I started crocheting. The first one, it's going to sound crazy, especially to some of us like people pleaser type of people. And the first thing is that you don't have to be perfect. And you don't have to be perfect to be a good crocheter or good knitter or good whatever you are. I think one of the key attributes of being a good crocheter is that you're able to adapt and you're able to analyze and see, like if you find a mistake, if you look at it objectively and say, does this need to be frogged? Do I need to go back a fourth of my project and fix this? Or can I add an extra stitch here? Can I take out a stitch? Just a couple examples. Things like that, where it's not about the perfection. Your pieces are perfectly imperfect. I absolutely love that. I think that's a great motto to have about ourselves as well. So while I have never had like if you've been following me, you know, I don't have like super extreme attention to detail. Like I get bored easy. I was 48 when I got diagnosed with ADHD, but trust me, it had been there for 48 years. So what I can say though is that while I didn't necessarily go back and change those things, I let it get me, and I let that self-talk tell me that I wasn't good at it and those type of things. So really just keep that in mind. You don't have to be perfect. And actually it was just yesterday, so it was Sunday morning. My friend Sydney, I'm going to link her video. She has a great new series out and a lot of it is for beginners. And yesterday, her video was all about allowing yourself to be a beginner. And I think that goes so well with this first point right here, is that what do beginners do? They make mistakes. They're not perfect. And it is okay. So I'll link that video for you if you just need, she goes a little more in depth on that whole aspect. So I'll link that below and check that out. If this particular point like really stung or like sunk in with you, check out her video. The next thing I wish I would have known before I started crocheting was that I didn't need to be a crochet expert in order to start. And I know that kind of sounds like the last one, but it isn't. I felt like I needed to dive in and watch all of these videos and learn all about different types of yarn because I was, again, so afraid of making a mistake. I wanted to make sure I had the right things to do anything. And it really kept me from jumping into a lot of projects, and I probably could have advanced my skills a lot faster had I have just gone with it. And yes, would there be projects where the yarn size really wasn't right for the project, or because of that it didn't fit well, or it was too stiff because Maybe I use super staver instead of, something drapey. I don't know. But the reality is I had plenty of those projects that didn't work out anyway. So what's the difference? Just don't wait for everything to be perfect. Don't believe that you have to watch every tutorial or that you have to get every book or you have to have the best of the best yarn or the best of the best hooks in order to start your projects. Just jump in. This next one is a little bit personal to me. It is one where I would count one of my really biggest mistakes, and I have taken that mistake and turning it into something positive. I have a whole video on it I will put up here, but I honest to goodness thought, because I was watching all these videos where everybody had gorgeous yarn stashes behind them, I honestly thought that if I was going to be crocheting, I needed to get this great yarn stash. And I was telling myself the reason I was doing it is because, I live very rurally and, I have to go almost an hour out of my way to find a store that sells yarn. So by having this yarn stash, I would be, saving money because I wouldn't be making extra trips, and I'd be more creative because I'd have supplies on hand. But the things that didn't work out in that is when you're starting out, you don't really know what you like. You don't know what you want to do. And so I was basing a lot of my yarn purchases, number one, on price and bargain, which led me to a whole litany of issues. Again, I'll have that video linked if you want to check that out. It'll be down below. But also picking things that I saw other people like and thinking that I needed to have basically that whole wall at Joann of all the different colors of yarn in my stash, even though guess what? I'm probably never going to use neon yarn. It's just not me. It's not that it's not cool. It's just not me. I am much more of whatever this is, like earth tony. So just know that while it might cost you a little bit more money in the short term, by not having that big stash, you will save money because you won't be buying things for the wrong reasons. You'll be buying them because you've experimented for a year or two and you've really developed the patterns you like to do, the projects, the fibers you like to work with, all of that stuff, so that when you go ahead and get ready to go and really start investing in having something on hand, you'll know what you like. Which brings me to the next point. I think it's number 4. I check my notes. And that is, it's okay if you don't like what everyone else is doing. Or it's okay if you don't like what a super popular person likes. I know when I started out, there was a few different channels that I watched a lot, and they, can be kind of particular about what they like to work with, as most of us get. But the thing was, I just took it on face value that because this expert liked this certain type of yarn, like either fiber or weight or whatever, or that meant that was the best. And after, like I said, experimenting a little bit and really getting into the fact that I just do and don't like certain things, I've really realized that I have to go with what I like because I'm the one that's crocheting with it. I'm the one spending my money that I worked for on these supplies, and it is not worth just spending my money on something that a big influencer likes. I can't do it. And the same goes with projects. I totally, a few years back, tricked myself into believing that I would make a temperature blanket. I spent a lot of time coming up with my system I was going to do and the yarns, and I bought all the yarn for it for the whole year, which is insane. I figured out later. I will link that playlist for you if you want to see the rise and fall of Shannon's temperature blanket. There's 2 out back to back, boom, boom, here's my temperature blanket. And then there was a 9-month hiatus, and then it was one of those confession videos, yeah, I can't do this. Anyway, just because a certain type of project is popular doesn't mean you have to like it. And for that matter, even if the thing you like best isn't cool or popular, who cares? Make what makes you happy. Again, those people aren't the one buying your yarn. It's you, and you want to enjoy it to like its fullest capacity. And that's the thing. You're going to do better. You're going to enjoy the process if it's an item you love. The last thing that I wish I knew when I started crochet, before I get into giving you 5 real quick tips if you're struggling, is that having or being part of a crochet or fiber, whatever type of fiber craft you do, while being part of a community is important and it's super beneficial, we can be selective. And honestly, as someone who grew up before the internet was invented, I want to tell you how special that I do think what we have here is. So let's backtrack for just a second. Each of us are so different, and we all live in different places, and we're in different stages of life. We're different ages. We have different family situations. We have different economic situations. Everything is so different. So there really isn't any one right and one wrong type of thing. There just isn't. And there are groups, unfortunately, who do feel that way. So what I want to tell you is, because of the miracle of the internet, I have said this before, but if you would have told like teenage Shannon she would be able to record a crochet program from her room and people across the world would have access to it, that would have been insane. I get a little sidetracked, probably because of the aforementioned ADHD. But what I want to drive home is that there are so many communities out there and available, whether it's on YouTube or YouTube memberships, or if it is Patreon memberships, or if it is a local group. There are Reddit communities, there's Facebook communities, there's a whole group of people on Instagram, like everywhere. Pretty much every platform you can imagine has fiber artists on there, and you really deserve to take the time, snoop around, join a few groups, leave groups that aren't a good fit, and keep going until you find something that fits really well for you. And then you have that support system. And while I can't say you don't need anyone in person, I do really think that if you can search out someone's, a couple people, not that they have to be your best friends or anything, but people that you associate with, that you can once in a while talk about your crochet with, that you can show a project to. And friend Jeanette and I, we regularly show each other our projects. I have a few people that come into my work that crochet, and I always show them what I'm working on. You know, things like that. Like, it's just good to have that human connection. All right, I've got 5 quick tips. Let's go kind of rapid fire on these. These will be strictly crochet because my knitting journey is just beginning. I did get a knitting box not that long ago, but I am in no way qualified to give out like these type of tips on knitting. I know those first examples I gave would totally apply to whatever. These will not. So if you are a knitter, I do appreciate you coming here and watching these videos, and I appreciate you sticking around. Number 1, be careful when you're starting out about using splitty yarn. One of the yarns that I feel like is super famous for this is Karen's Simply Soft, and it's a beautiful yarn. It's got like a sheen to it, but it tends to be very splitty. A lot of cotton yarns can be splitty. If you have a yarn that isn't wound, like it's just the strands together, that is going to be very splitty. And the reason that this can be so frustrating when you are newer to crocheting is that your hook can be going like in between those and pulling some of it through, but not all of it. And it can really throw off your tension. It can create not a knot, but kind of, it gets a little bit knotted up. So just know, like, if you are really struggling and you're pulling like half of your yarn through the loop when you do it and the other half is still on the other side, it's probably not anything you're doing wrong. It probably has a lot more to do with the yarn you're using, and really go for something that is spun differently. And if you're really struggling, maybe try like a chain spun yarn. Along with that, my second quick tip is going to be to use a boy style hook. And if you don't know what I mean by that, I am talking about the type of hooks where it is kind of blunt on the end and you just have like the hook, as opposed to an inline hook, which would be more like Susan Bates or furls. Boy style will have less of a chance of piercing the yarn in the wrong place, and it will tend to just glide over a little better. And that's not to say you can't change what you like later on, but I know when I started out, I didn't even know there was a difference, but I remember being so frustrated with certain projects because I was using that inline style and I just was not grabbing the yarn well enough and pulling it through, and it was popping off and I was so frustrated. So consider starting out with simple hooks. This next quick tip, the third one, is totally personal preference. This is totally a Shannon opinion. There is no scientific data anywhere backing this up, but I think an absolutely great yarn for you to start out with when you're learning is DK or 3-weight yarn. Reason I say this is because in my experience when I started out, I know I was watching some videos and the person doing the tutorial is like, I don't like small yarn, I like using 4 or 5 or 6-weight yarn. I was like, yeah, this person knows what they're doing. And the reality is, for me, as someone who I was a hairstylist for 12 years and then I have been a secretary for a very, very long time, and like keyboard type stuff, and it's like my hands hurt using those thicker yarns. It feels like a lot of times I have to use more muscle, I have to pull harder, and my hands get worn out faster. And not only like the comfort level of it, but I find a lot of times those thicker yarns, it can sometimes just seem a little bit, like your stitches just seem a little bit bulkier. And if you do happen to make a mistake and you don't deem it as something that's really worth going back to fix, they are more obvious with those bigger yarns, where if you're using something a little bit smaller, the stitches aren't going to be quite as much pronounced. You're going, it's going to blend in because there'll be more stitches, things like that. The hook you're using will be a little bit smaller, and I honestly feel like the lighter the hook, the easier it is for me to crochet with. So again, this is just my personal experience and my old arthritic hands. So take that, just take it as an opinion. It's definitely not the law, but it's something where I think that 3-weight is really the perfect balance of being small enough. You'll have great stitch definition, which will also help you see if you have made a little mistake, but it's easy to work with. It won't hurt your hands. It's not heavy. You won't have to be pulling, but it's also not so small that it's going to be difficult because of it being so thin. Like, I have come to love fingering weight yarn. I love it. It's actually my favorite to work with now. But I wouldn't probably not have lasted very long when I started out because, it like takes forever to make a beanie out of fingering weight yarn. It really does, compared to a 4-weight. So again, I think that 3-weight, it's called DK, double knit, those are the words you would use. I think that is just really the best yarn for beginners to start with. A really great example of that is this mandala yarn. This is the 3-weight right here. And I started this on that tutorial I put out last week. So this is the shawl. I think I am going to put some fringe on the bottom. I saved a little bit of yarn and I think I'm going to put some fringe on. But see, this is a 3-weight. This isn't too thin for you to work with. I promise it's not. The 4th quick tip is going to be practice with simple projects. Oh my gosh. I have heard so many people say, like someone over the 4th of July told me they were going to learn to crochet by buying an amigurumi kit. Whoa, why make things harder for yourself? Start with simple, beginner-friendly projects. If you are a super newbie, I am going to link down in the description box a couple of videos from my friend Jessie at Sweet Moments by Jessie. She has some great like beginner scarf tutorials and some dishcloth tutorials, and they are simple and you will do great at them, I promise. And that brings us to the very 5th quick tip, even though I have been a little more long-winded and not as quick with my tips as I wanted. But the 5th quick tip is, oh my gosh, don't start out doing projects that have a deadline. As much as we all love to give our gifts and we want to spread whatever type of joy it is, don't start out by doing projects for a birthday or a holiday or something like that, because you are going to put so much pressure on yourself that you don't need to put on yourself. And I guarantee you, your performance will not be as good trying to meet that deadline and hurry through as it would be if you just relaxed and gave yourself time to do it. Again, there might be a little bit of like, personal experience in that one. So just remember, you don't have to be perfect. As my friend Sid says, you're allowed to be a beginner. You don't need to know it all. You just don't. You may think you do, but you don't. Take it from me. If you are looking for a little bit more content, I will have links below for a bunch of other stuff, like my email and my membership and a new publication I'm coming out with. All that stuff will be in the description box if you want to go check that out. I would love it, but you don't have to. You totally don't have to. Now, since this video was aimed at people that are maybe struggling a little bit or getting frustrated or are in their beginning stages, I do know I have quite a handful of people who are, I would consider, expert crocheters that come and watch videos and are also in my membership. And what I can tell you is that they have decades of experience and are very talented. So if you are one of those people, I would love it if down in the comments section that you would leave a tip for someone, something you wish you would have known when you started crochet or knitting. Yeah, especially if you're a knitter, because I didn't have any of those quick tips for knitters, but leave a comment letting us know. Thank you so much for talking yarn with me. I will see you soon. Bye.